Greetings, educators. My name is Kevin Eddington, National Literacy Consultant with Out of Hand to Mind. And I'm truly honored and delighted to be able to share with you and be invited to the California Dyslexia Conference for 2024 to be able to share with you a few multimodal instructional strategies for structured literacy with that of hand to mind. Now, one thing that I want to share with you right out of the gate is with the resources that we're going to be sharing with you from hand to mind, we're really building our structured pedagogy around the science of reading. So, with the structured literacy resource that you're going to find, we're going to take those ideas, that intellectual framework of the science of reading, and put it into practice with structured literacy, as this is literally putting into practice the praxis of that pedagogy. So, with structured literacy, I want to guide your eyes to what's on the screen right now of looking at Eric the hedgehog, whom runs on the track in his socks. Now, for some that are coming from and teaching towards balanced literacy, we're just offering a different sort of modality for implementing the term track. And guide your attention right there to track. So, as we move into structured literacy, we're moving away from students relying on the picture to decipher the meaning of track, but taking a look at track specifically, learning the sounds, decoding the words, giving your students those opportunities to break down those phonemes so that they're much more informed and much more accurate readers. Now, when you take a look at what are the principles of structured literacy with hand to mind, these are the tenets for many of our programs that are built around this entire framework. One is that for your dyslexic learners, we want to be able to provide a diagnostic resource right up front that provides that baseline of skills for where your students are coming from, but most importantly, can identify where we're ultimately going to be going and headed towards. Once we've established that baseline, we want to give your students access to systematic and cumulative instruction, staircasing that instruction. So students have to crawl before they walk, walk before they run, as we increase the rigor and stamina for students to build on out that enduring understanding as we escalate through Bloom's taxonomy. Finally, always offering some clear, explicit, often teacher-led instruction so that your students have access to everything that they need systematically, but most importantly, meeting them at their present levels of performance and moving them on up to that next level. Now, this is that general theoretical framework that we build all of our resources to and from, and certainly within those elements, those tenets of structured literacy, you'll find all of those resources, such as we have here, throughout our entire suite of resources. Now, I want to laser in on just two separate resources that we have access to, just to provide some clear, explicit, systematic instruction for your dyslexic learners. Those two resources are number one, going to be our interactive decodable text sets found right over here, in addition to your phonics and your phonemic awareness toolkit, which is also seen on the screen right now. I'll firstly move on over into the interactive decodable text sets. There are multiple text sets that are available for different skills, and you're truly self-contained. The best thing about that is that each and every one of the resources and the lessons that are within these decodable text sets work as that staircase to provide students with additional supports that move them from skill to skill to skill. Again, once you are truly self-contained, you have opportunities to look at some decodable text. There are 6 opportunities there, so you can work with a small group instruction, as well as there are assessments that are also part of that instruction as well. Shifting gears on over to the opposite side of the screen, where we're taking a look at those resources for the phonemic awareness and phonics toolkit, we really once again want to be able to laser in on some multimodal instruction for your students so they can see instruction, hear it. Those tactile learners can also benefit certainly from some multimodal instruction, so your dyslexic learners can see those skills in a multitude of different varieties so we can bring these skills and standards to life. A couple of things that are in the toolbox I can really unpack for you pretty quickly are going to be your phoneme phones, so students can simply hear those sounds. You have your visual lenticular cards right over here so that your students can not only see the mouth articulation of that skill right over there, but there's also clear, explicit instruction on the back for your students as well. You have your magnetic wands with your Alconin boxes, and then finally, your magnetic tools to be able to kind of link in those words together just so those students can simply have another opportunity to have some hands-on tactile instruction. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds great, but how will I be able to fit this into my busy day? Ideally, once again, if I need to pull some students aside for some small group instruction, a lot of these resources can be done in the confines of 5, upwards of 15, to even upwards of 20 minutes worth of instruction. That certainly reigns true for your decodable text sets, as well as your phonics and your phonemic awareness toolkit right there, just lasering in on some small group instruction. Now, when I further take a look at my teacher's guide for the phonemic awareness and phonics toolkit, through the teacher's guide, once again, we provide you with that clear, explicit instruction, always building upon that gradual release model of responsibility so that students can continue to be nurtured through every single step of the way. You have those that tried and true gradual release model there. You also have access to your assessments as well in terms of additional opportunities for progress monitoring throughout the entire course of your instruction. Okay. Now, I just want to again leave you with a clear visual of where we're taking you, most importantly, with your students. Certainly, you have that ease of use with that step by step instruction to be able to dip in and dip out. You have the freedom and flexibility of time, just an additional 15 to 20 minutes in terms of moving into and through that small group instruction. And certainly with multiple opportunities for that hands on, multi-sensory, multimodal instruction. And then finally, always building upon that gradual release model of responsibility. Now, when I take a look at, once again, my interactive decodable text sets, I can move into the online e-reader right now, and where I can see how this physical text box moves into the digital age. So I can oscillate between both modalities, physical or digital. All right. So when I take a look at one of my lessons right over here, looking at the short A sound right over there, moving on down, high frequency words, my focus words, what materials do I need to be able to bring a short A to life? I have my text cards, which I'll see on the next page, my L. Conan boxes, which are also online or in physical format, the 3 counters, and finally a dry erase marker that I can easily have access to. Right down below, what tips or what strategies do I need to execute this in terms of what do I need to do before the reading? Focus words right over there. Say these words so I can physically hear some of these sounds. Once again, so students can be able to interact with these lessons in a multi-modal kind of operation. So I can hear it, but I can also be able to write it as well on my L. Conan boxes. What strategies do I need to implement while during reading and then finally after reading right over here by asking some of the comprehension questions we'll see in a couple of moments. And then finally, if I ever need to extend the life of the conversation, what opportunities can I take advantage of right over there? And finally, differentiation, opportunities for approaching, exceeding, and finally, my more global international students as well for English language learners. Now, if I turn one page on over to, you see example of that text set. I have access to those high frequency words, and then finally opportunities for students to be able to write it visually there, but as well as if I needed to take out an L. Conan box, I can also write it there as well, all right? Let me shift one more gear and move on over into my phonics and phonemic awareness toolkit, where that same sort of consideration for that short A is also going to be found right over here. So in case that I need to have students interact with this resource in a multitude of different varieties, I'm able to extend that. I have my objective right over here on the left-hand side of the screen. I'll scroll down and have access to a multitude of different avenues for students to be able to touch the short A sound. Dry erase markers, once again, my 3D sound cards, these lenticular cards right over here, the L. Conan boxes, the colored magnetic chips, the magnetic wand that goes along with it, and then finding that phoneme foam. As you go throughout this entire scope of this 2-page lesson, again lasting about 15 minutes or so, we can laser in on a couple of those elements of structured literacy to once again bring the science of reading to life for your students. Again, we're adopting the gradual release model of the I do, the we do, the you do, and simply going down the line to be able to give your students everything that they need to be able to touch some of these resources in a multitude of different varieties. So, case in point, if I take a look at the phonemic awareness, I have my L. Conan boxes right over here. I have the chips with the magnetic wands, so my students can physically take that wand and pick up some of those chips as it relates back to the sounds. And then finally, taking out that phoneme foam as a student so I can physically hear the sounds of that short A. Again, I want to draw your attention back to the screen right over here in terms of as we round things on out, taking a look at the scope and sequence, just to give you all as educators the freedom, the flexibility, but most importantly, the clarity of knowing what skills will be housed and covered, not only in my Dakota with text sets, but as well as in my hands-on um, phonemic awareness and phonics toolkit. Educators, what we want to do at the end of the day is we really want to bring learning to life, and that's certainly seen with all of our hands-on activities with that of hand to mind. Educators, thank you so much for your time, your attention, and most importantly, your consideration of hand to mind as we reach and teach all of your dyslexic learners. Thank you. Educators, thank you so much for your time, your attention, and your consideration of Hand to Mind's assistance in your classrooms. Please kindly follow the QR code for additional follow-up information, but as well as please contact your local representatives, John up north in Northern California, Lloyd in Southern California, or myself for any questions, comments, or concerns.